So today we're doing a comparison between basically the staple in the industry for the affordable integrated bracelet watch, that is the Tissot PRX, versus the newcomer, that is the Christopher Ward 12. Now, what Christopher Ward have tried to do is make a better PRX, in my opinion, and they've looked at other brands, more expensive brands, for inspiration, and what they've done here is something very special. However, is it better than the Tissot PRX, considering it's almost double the price specifically for the stainless steel version on a bracelet? So let's flip the camera and take a look at some of the details, some of the differences and similarities between the Tissot PRX POWERMATIC 80 and the new Christopher Ward 12 integrated bracelet sports watch. So as promised, I am back with a head-to-head comparison of the Tissot PRX versus the Christopher Ward 12 in stainless steel. I'm going to talk about the differences between these watches, and I'm also going to talk about a lot of the similarities between these two watches because they are pretty similar. Now, there is a price difference. The Christopher Ward costs around $1,200 and change versus the Tissot PRX, which is around $675. Now, the Tissot is automatic. This is the automatic version. It has a hobnail pattern dial. This is the black variant. It does get lume as well. We'll do a lume shot towards the end. Of course, the Christopher Ward does get lume as well, and it's actually pretty good. I would like to see the difference between the two, so we will do a lume shot towards the end of this video. Both are automatic, so you are getting a POWERMATIC 80, which is made by ETA in the Tissot PRX. The PRX, powered by the POWERMATIC 80, gets 80 hours of power reserve. It's basically an ETA movement that's been slowed down, so you get 80 hours of power reserve. Really, really attractive. A lot of people love these movements. The movement in the Christopher Ward is the tried and true Sellita SW200. Both of these have sapphire crystals on the front and back so you can see the movements, and they are integrated bracelet watches. They both have 100 meters of water resistance. They both have butterfly clasps with the names of the brands stamped on those clasps. So that's a lot of the similarities right there. You also get textured dials on both of these. Like I said, a hobnail pattern on the PRX versus the Christopher Ward, which gets the Christopher Ward cross basically stamped throughout the dial. And it's a little bit more pronounced than what you get on the Tissot PRX. So if you want to see the pattern more, you're definitely going to see it on the 12 more. Now, both of them are integrated bracelet watches, and when you turn the watches on their side a little bit, you're going to notice that the Christopher Ward case tapers a little bit better or a little bit more than the PRX, and that means it actually wears a little bit smaller because of that, even though they're almost exactly the same size. Also, you see that there is a male end link. It's really the case itself that protrudes out, and then the bracelet is a female end link, and that attaches to the case. However, it acts as though it's a male end link. The same goes for the Tissot PRX. Essentially, it has a female end on that case. However, the male end link on this bracelet fits into that female end, and it still acts like a male end link. So both of them actually wear larger than their said dimensions for their lug to lug. Both of them have a pretty small crown. However, the Christopher Ward is a little bit bigger, and you do have crown guards on the Christopher Ward, while you do not get that on the PRX. The PRX does have a smaller crown. It is signed with the Tissot T, and you can see from its profile, it's just polished, and then you have bead blasting on the top. The bracelets themselves, I would say there's a little bit more play in the Tissot bracelet, while there's a little bit less in the Christopher Ward bracelet. And also the Christopher Ward does taper more. I'll do a measurement so you can see exactly what I am talking about. With that being said, I think both bracelets are very, very comfortable. The difference between the bracelets, in my opinion, is the fact that the Christopher Ward has basically chamfered edges throughout and polishing on every single edge, while the Tissot does not. So there is no polishing on the sides. The Christopher Ward has no polishing either. The Christopher Ward is a little bit thicker of a bracelet, and it has screwed links, while there are push pins in the Tissot. So again, a difference there. The Christopher Ward also gets a screwed-in crown with 100 meters of water resistance, while the Tissot PRX has a push-pull crown. So again, something else to be mentioned. All of the Christopher Wards also have their date at the 6 o'clock, while the Tissot PRX have their date at the 3 o'clock. And they are color matched on the Christopher Ward 12, so they are at the 6 o'clock and color matched, while of course the PRX does not have color matching. And the window is a little bit more pronounced because there is a silver surround. The surround on the Christopher Ward, I think, is silver as well, but just not as pronounced. There is also a more pronounced chapter ring, or actually minute track, on the Christopher Ward. So that's something to be mentioned as well. The bezels are very different as well. The bezel is just polished on the Tissot, while on the Christopher Ward, of course, you have 12 sides to the bezel. It's sort of sitting on a circular platform, so that 12-sided part of the bezel is sitting on top of a circular platform, so it almost looks circular, but you also have sort of two dimensions to it, so it's actually very, very nice. There is brushing and polishing on the bezel, so a little bit nicer again than the Tissot PRX. When you're turning them on their side, and I'll do a close-up of all of this, you can see that there is a really nice thick chamfered edge on the Christopher Ward versus a little bit more of a shallow edge on the Tissot. So I think what happened here is essentially Christopher Ward went out and bought a couple of PRXs and made sure that in almost every way it's just a little bit nicer, in some cases a lot nicer than what you're getting from the PRX. Which in my opinion makes a lot of sense. If you're going to go out and make a watch that's somewhat affordable and integrated bracelet, you definitely need to check out the PRX, because that's the watch to beat. So the case dimensions on the PRX, just around 39.9 millimeters, so essentially 40 millimeters. And the thickness on this watch is just around 11.2 millimeters. The crown is small at 4.8 millimeters. And then of course the lug to lug, and I'm just gonna do the effective lug to lug here, 51 millimeters. Really at the case, it's around 44.5. So keeping those numbers in mind and looking at the Christopher Ward, when you're measuring at the case itself, it's around 39.8, so almost exactly the same size as the PRX. However, you do have these extra crown guards. I don't think it wears like a 41 millimeter watch, but that's kind of what it measures like. Thickness on here is just below the PRX, and actually 1 millimeter below the PRX, so 10.1 millimeters. So thinner than the PRX, which is great. And then the crown is also larger, around a millimeter, again, bigger than the PRX, so 5.8 millimeters. Plus you have a screwed-in crown and screwed-in case back. Looking at the lug to lug, again, if you are grabbing it at the actual bracelet, it's around the same, 51 millimeters, somewhere in that neighborhood. However, the case itself is a lot smaller, 39.8 millimeters. Now, I know they make straps for both of these watches. I'm not sure how they react to the case, so how they align with the case, and if they act as a male end link still. I'm not entirely sure of that. However, I think they're around the same size. Now you can see there is a taper to the case, as I mentioned before, to the Christopher Ward. So in general, the Christopher Ward does wear smaller on your wrist. And I'm going to show you the watch that I have on my wrist, and then I'll throw these watches on my wrist as well. On my wrist today, I have the titanium version of the 12. This is under 10 millimeters thick. It's actually around 9 millimeters thick, so it is really thin. It gets a Sellita SW300, which is COSC certified. So obviously this fits really, really well. It's lighter. It gets the same finishing essentially as the stainless steel version. However, it is gorgeous. The dial is a fume pattern. A full review of this watch is already up on my channel. I will link to that above, but really, really a beautiful watch. So I'm going to throw the Tissot PRX on my wrist really quickly because we just saw the 12 on my wrist, and this feels really nice. It doesn't feel as nice as the 12, especially the titanium version. This does wear bigger than both of those watches. It's thicker than both of those watches. You could see It looks great. The Tissot PRX is a great watch, and you can actually get these at a discount. Not many of them are selling at a discount yet, but the black dial does sell at a slight discount. But you can get these around $650, $675 all day long on their website. It's just not as nice as the 12. Now the 12 is double the price. So around double the price. So that is something definitely to consider. Well, there's the 12 on my 7.5 inch wrist, and you can see it does wear smaller. It feels smaller on the wrist, not only because it's thinner, but because of that case that tapers a little bit better than the Tissot. It just overall feels nicer. The bracelet feels like a slightly higher quality bracelet, which is saying a lot because the Tissot PRX has an incredible bracelet for the money. I always say that the bracelet on the PRX is a bracelet you would find on watches that cost $1,000 plus, $2,000. And I have to say, this feels like a bracelet that you would find on a watch that costs, a lot more, $2,000, $3,000. So this is really, really nice. It's nicer than the PRX. Well, there you go. You can see that the Christopher Ward is much brighter than the Tissot PRX. The Christopher Ward is in my left hand. The hands are very bright. The indices are equally as bright, while the Tissot, you can see that the indices are very lightly applied with lume. The hands are pretty liberally applied. However, they fade a little bit faster than the Christopher Ward, so they put a lot more layers of superluminova on the Christopher Ward versus obviously the Tissot PRX. So definitely the Christopher Ward wins here when you're talking about lume. Well, there you have it. In my opinion, I think that the Christopher Ward beats the PRX on almost every front except for maybe the movement, because you are getting that Powermatic 80. It is exclusive to Tissot and obviously the Etta group, so they'll never be able to get that movement within a Christopher Ward. However, with that being said, there are a few little differences that some people may like better on the Tissot versus that 12 from Christopher Ward. Specifically, the dial. The dial is more legible, I would say, on the Tissot PRX. That's because the pattern on the Christopher Ward is a little bit more complicated, a little bit more deep, I would say. So it's a little bit harder to read on a day-to-day basis. But other than that, I think that the case is better, the bracelet is better, the overall finishing is actually better than the Tissot, and I've always said that the Tissot is an amazing watch, especially considering its price. So that's saying a lot for Christopher Ward, and if you're in the market for something that's a little bit of a step up from the Tissot PRX, but you don't want to go crazy, you don't want to buy a Royal Oak or spend tons of money, the Christopher Ward could be a really great option. Anyway, guys, tell me what you think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel, and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, thank you for logging on. I'll catch you guys in the next video.